Conflict is a disagreement that arises when two or more parties perceive a threat to their interests, needs, or concerns. Conflict can be both constructive and deconstructive. One major conflict resolution expert argues that whether conflict is positive or negative is determined by the party's response to the conflict rather than the conflict itself. Behaviors that escalate a conflict until the conflict seems to take on a life of its own generate dysfunctional conflict. Dysfunctional conflicts focus on emotions and differences between the two parties and can degenerate the extent that the parties forget these substantive issues and focus on getting even, retaliating, or even hurting the other party. Not only can dysfunctional conflict negatively influence employee, work group, and company performance, but it can also lead to employee depression, turnover, burnout, and negative emotional states. Constructive conflicts, also called functional conflicts, balance the interests of both parties to maximize mutual gains in the attainment of mutual goals. Task conflict is a disagreement about the task or goals. A moderate amount of task conflict is beneficial in the early stages of a project because it increases innovation and generates more alternatives for which to choose. However, task conflict is more likely to be detrimental over time when tasks are complex. Even when we agree about what we are trying to accomplish, we can still disagree about how we should accomplish it. Process conflict reflects conflict about how to accomplish a task, who is responsible for what, or how things should be delegated. Conflicts can arise from interpersonal differences in motivation, aspirations, or personality. Interpersonal differences are a common trigger of relationship conflict, which is the result of incompatibility or differences between individuals or groups. Relationship conflict can also be triggered by personality, particularly the personality traits of dogmatism and power motivation. The availability and allocation of scarce resources is a major source of conflict in organizations. Incompatible needs and competition over perceived or actual resource constraints can create conflicts of interest. Change also causes conflict. Indeed, it has been said that change is not possible without conflict. One of the primary drivers of conflict is uncertainty. Organizational changes, including reorganization, downsizing, and changing business strategies, increase uncertainty and opportunities for resource conflicts. External changes can also trigger conflict if regulations or changing market conditions change the relative importance of different organizational groups. People differ in their values and worldviews. These differences are the source of values conflict, or conflict arising from perceived or actual incompatibilities in beliefs about what is good or bad, right or wrong, and fair or unfair. Poor communication increases the uncertainty and can thus increase the potential for conflict. When one person or unit is dependent on another for resources or information, the potential for conflict increases. Structural conflict is the result of structural or process features of the organization. Structural conflict can be horizontal or vertical. Horizontal conflict occurs between groups at the same organizational level, but as between line and staff employees or between departments such as production and marketing. Slide for goal setting and planning. The manager's second major function is organization. Organizing is the grouping of resources and activities to accomplish some end result in an efficient and effective manner. Considering the case of a chef that creates a line of new recipes and wants to sell them packaged. It's an extermination of the opponent. The chef will do anything on their own. Purchase raw materials, make the product, advertise it, sell it, and keep business records. Eventually, as the business grows, the chef will need help. To begin with, he or she might hire a professional sales representative and a part-time bookkeeper. Later, it might be necessary to hire sales staff, people to assist with production, and an accountant. As the chef hires new personnel, he or she must decide what each person will do to whom each person will report, and how each person can best take part in the organization's activities. If you are involved in a conflict, one of the best ways to prevent further escalation is to react equivalently to the other party and not overreact. Sometimes underreacting can trigger de escalation of the conflict. By being aware of the dynamic and setting personal behavior limits at the beginning of the conflict, you can often avoid being caught up in the conflict escalation process. Controlling is the process of evaluating and regulating ongoing activities to ensure that goals are achieved. The control function includes 3 steps. The first is setting standards against which performance can be compared. The second is measuring actual performance and comparing it with the standard. And the third is taking corrective action as necessary. Notice that the control function is circular in nature. The steps in the control function must be repeated periodically until the goal is achieved. There are 5 conflict management strategies that differ in the concern for others and concern for your own interests. Collaborating reflects a high concern for your own interest and a high concern for the interest of the other party. Compromising is a conflict management style in which each side sacrifices something in order to end the conflict. Competing is a conflict management style resulting from a high concern for your own interest and low concern for the other party. Accommodating is a cooperative conflict management style. Accommodating reflects a low concern for your own interest and a high concern for the interest of the other party. And avoiding is a passive conflict management style involving ignoring the conflict or denying that it exists at all. After a potential conflict is triggered, it is perceived by both parties. The true disagreement may differ from the perceived disagreement. Conflict is often accompanied by misunderstandings that exaggerate the perceived disagreement. If neither party experiences emotion in reaction to the potential conflict, it does. Fortunately, most managers can learn the necessary skills for effective conflict management. Professionals in conflict resolution training suggest 4 areas of skill development: listening, questioning, communicating nonverbally, and meditating. Conflict can lead to better discussions, better relationships, and other positive outcomes. However, most people dislike conflict. It is seen as easier, less stressful, and less risky to one's career to avoid conflict and suppress opinions, despite their effectiveness in stimulating more creative and effective ideas and solutions. To successfully create constructive conflict, organizations often punish conflict avoiders. Rewarding employees who engage in constructive conflict can help to reduce employees' fear of ridicule or rejection.